Hey guys, it's Rhett from the 100 Acre Wood Highlands, and man, I am bummed. Today started out pretty nice, and now some kind of a little bit of a cool front's come in and it started to rain, but tomorrow we're going to go from a high of 71 to a low of 31. And we're going to stay around that 29, 30, 31, 32 degrees until like Thursday. And I seem like I do this every single year. Earlier this week, I think it was just about 3 days ago, we had 2 days that were in the upper 80s already. And so I always get gung-ho and I plant my stuff, my fruit trees bloom, and then we have last minute cold snap that comes in. So, you know, one of the good things about being on a little small farm is that you tend to accumulate some junk that you can use at later times. And so I went searching around and I found 3 sticks of 1/2-inch PVC pipe. I found some old movable fence. These are like little posts to attach a hot wire fence to. And I found some of my mineral tub blocks. I got some in the back, and probably gonna drag out some tarps, and I found some clear plastic. And my idea is I'm gonna try to make a small hoop house to go over my tomato rows and maybe my squash and zucchini rows. And I'm gonna try out a couple of different methods to try to protect some of these vegetables from the frost. So I'm a part of a group on Facebook called the Homestead Front Porch. If you haven't found that yet, it's a really cool group where people post all sorts of different topics about homesteading and gardening. And the person that started that does a podcast that I love to listen to also. But I posted on there last night, kind of giving the situation, saying, you know, got this freeze coming. Do you think a low tunnel is going to work? You know, do you think buckets will work? And I got a lot of different responses from people in Texas and Kansas and Oklahoma and some other areas, because, you know, I'm not the only one. A lot of people had gone out and planted their gardens already and things were sprouted, and now winter's coming back. So a lot of people suggested the low tunnel is a good idea, and it actually turns out if you had like a greenhouse type plastic, that can actually increase the temperature inside of it by 6 to 8 degrees. Now the plastic that I have is more of like a plastic drop cloth that they sold at Walmart. I had bought some a couple of years ago for some project and never actually even opened up the package. So I got one of those, and it's not going to probably provide as much warmth. So I may put the tomato plants under buckets and then inside of that hoop house. But some other suggestions were to, you know, fill up milk jugs full of water and leave that by the plants, because that water will heat up during the day with the sunlight, and then slowly release that heat throughout the night. Some other suggestions that I read was to really thoroughly water the night before. I guess that somehow helps keep the soil warmer and keeps it from freezing. And so we're going to give it our best attempt here to provide some shelter for these plants to see if they can stay alive for the next 3 days. But if not, I've already got some new tomato plants that have sprouted under the grow lights, and I've got a lot more seeds. So if at first you don't succeed, try again. So basically what I'm going to be doing is creating a miniature greenhouse over this tomato row and some of the other places. So we're going to start by cutting the PVC, and this is just 1/2-inch PVC pipe that you get at any kind of hardware store. I'm going to be cutting it in 4-foot sections. It would be a lot easier to make a bow shape if I had a little bit longer of a arch, but the plastic that I have is 10 foot wide, and I'd like to cut it in half and still have some left over to lay on the ground on both sides. And then we're going to lay T-posts and posts and maybe some of this mulch on top of it to hold it down. So if you got enough plastic, a bigger, wider arch would probably be a little bit better, but got to work with what I have. So the idea here is I'm making these probably about like 8 or 10-inch pieces of metal to be the anchors, and I'm going to drive those down into the ground. And then these 4-foot sections of PVC pipe I'm going to bend over to make the archway, and I'll probably put 4 or 5 arches down this row of tomatoes, and then we'll cut the plastic to go over it and anchor down the sides with some weights. Some on this side, since there's only 3 tomatoes still remaining, I'm probably just going to use buckets on those. So most of my fruit trees have got blooms on them or real small fruit. I'll show you the pears and the peaches later, but if you look at these blueberries, you can already start to see but they're forming berries. And so I'd like to try to preserve this bed if I can, because I really want to eat some blueberries. That is a way easier arch to make. So I think I have enough plastic to cover that row of tomatoes, probably this bed of blueberries, and maybe I should cover one of those raised beds of potatoes. I could maybe mound up some dirt around them and stuff, but I'm thinking it's going to be cold enough for long enough. I should probably try to cover some of that stuff. I'm thinking that the last place that I fed the cows some hay, there's lots and lots of loose hay. And some of the pumpkins, some of the black-eyed peas, some of the green beans, squash, and all that stuff has just sprouted. Like, just came out of the dirt, like half an inch tall in the last day or two. So I think I'm gonna go jump in the Ranger, drive up there to where that hay is, and use a pitchfork to gather some of it up. And I think I'll layer a base of hay around where those sprouts are, and then I'll either use a 5-gallon bucket or the mineral tub upside down over it. And hopefully that insulates it enough to keep it alive for the next few days. That was like a rodeo trying to get those tarps over those arches with all this wind, but we've got 4 of the areas covered with tarps tonight. We have a little bit of tarps left. Tomorrow's actually going to start out pretty nice. It's going to be in the 60s and 70s until after lunch. But the forecast is also saying that it's going to be really windy tomorrow, so I wanted to try to get as much of this done and ready for tomorrow. That way, as soon as church is over, eat some lunch, run out here, finish covering up the things with straw and the buckets, and then we'll be able to check on it a few days later. This one's the one that really concerns me. I can just imagine myself finding this plastic a half a mile up through the field up there tomorrow. Okay, well, get some buckets gathered for tomorrow. Got lots of straw to finish covering up the things that have sprouted. Probably gonna rain some tonight. There's a chance of a storm around 8 o'clock or so not too far from now, but hopefully this plastic will still be here in the morning and I'll finish covering up everything else. Well, it actually looks like the little greenhouses and tarps held up last night, so I don't know how much wind we got, but it was thundering and lightning and raining pretty hard, and so I was kind of worried that all this tarps and stuff would be all over the pasture and everything, but they're still there. It's so sunshiny and warm, I'm hoping that the soil is going to warm up and help trap some of that heat in here. I did find one thing that's not very good. This tarp has got like 4 inches of water in it, so potatoes I probably don't want to flood with water, so I'm going to bucket all of that out of there, and then maybe I'll try to work up, you know, some way for that water to drain out of there if we get any more rain over the next few days. But goal today is to cover up all these little seedlings with hay. I'll kind of show you. We've got a bunch of little seedlings that have just sprouted. So, you know, here's for example some of the squash plants are just coming out of the ground. We got 2 over there, and 1 here. This is my row of black-eyed peas, and you can see they are just starting to come out of the ground. Over there, got some purple whole peas started. A couple of them are coming out of the ground. So I'm glad I went and got a bunch of straw yesterday. I'm gonna cover up all this stuff, put buckets on top, because by 3 o'clock I think the temperature is gonna drop. Maybe those buckets will help keep the water running off of it if we get any more rain. So last night when I went and got all that hay, I put it in these buckets and then put the buckets upside down, that way the hay would stay dry while I spread it around today. So I'm gonna use it to cover up these seedlings, and then I'll use all these buckets to cover them up. And you know, ideally they would only be covered up for like a day, because we were gonna have like a frost in the morning or something. But with it being cold for 3 days, I don't know what damage it's gonna do having this straw on it and the buckets over it without sunlight for 3 days, but I don't really have any other option. This row of tomatoes, there's only 3 in it. I've got some more transplants that we're gonna put out later, but these, I'm hoping we can use these buckets and that straw, and hopefully that'll keep it warm enough. Well, it seems a little strange to be doing all this because it's beautiful out here. I mean, this is what springtime weather is supposed to be like, but cold weather's coming. I'm glad I had a bunch of junk around the farm that we could, repurpose to use to protect this. I probably planted like 40 or 50 fruit trees and pecan trees and bushes and stuff over the past couple of years, and I'd saved most of those buckets. And we had some hay to cover up things, we had this tarps, and then I found T-posts and just other things to help hold all this stuff down. So, you know, thanks for watching, guys. I really hope this works. If you haven't already, subscribed to my channel down below. You can find me on Facebook by searching 100 Acre Wood Highlands. We're going to check back in on probably Thursday or Friday and see if the seedlings and the plants survived, and if not, we'll plant it all again. But I feel like this is redneck DIY frost protection. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.